There we are. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. I think that thing played a little too fast. We're on a delay. But anyway, welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And here we go with another great show. And my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Welcome. I'm glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here, and thank you, Robert, as always, and greetings and welcome to all y'all out there. We're always praying that you're doing the best you can, and we hope that you enjoy the show again. What number is this, Robert?
94.
We're pushing 100. Can you believe it? 100 shows almost.
When we get to 100, we're gonna celebrate.
Jump up and down and holler, yay!
Oh, we're gonna have to do something special for 100.
2 stories for you tonight.
Yes, good deal. I like stories.
Yeah, we'll have to have fireworks.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be doing the Battle of the Wabash. So hopefully that works. We're running, I don't know about you, but my internet seems to be either running slow or maybe it's yours. But I think maybe it's both of ours. You know?
No, for what I just paid for mine, it's supposed to be lickety split.
Yeah, you keep cutting in and out.
Whatever
too,
it is,
yeah, we'll just have to wing it. We're just going to have to wing it. I hope maybe somebody in the audience can tell us what's going on. Anyway, sorry if I'm coughing a little bit. It's been really smoky up around here. The Canadian fires have been burning like crazy. It's smoky like fog outside. It cleared up a little bit today, but man, it's just in your nose, in your throat, burning your eyes. It's rough. So anyway, I make do.
Years ago, the Okefenokee swamp caught on fire. It was a bog fire, and they couldn't put it out. And all South Georgia and North Florida was just covered in smoke. And it was horrible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's not good when the swamp catches fire. There's Elderberry. Elderberry, can you hear us tonight? Let us know. I can hear Duggar. I can hear Duggar. Well, anyway, first off, I got this nice old book, the Story of the American Indians. Okay? And in this book on chapter 5, okay. In this book on chapter 5, it talks about culture and communism. Now, this book was wrote back in 1887 by, I don't know who wrote it. It was like a school book or something. It's the Story of the American Indian, His Origin, Development, Decline, and Destiny by Elbridge S. Brooks. Now, on chapter 5, we get to this part where it starts talking about the Indians and how they got together and the different types of progress that these Indians were in. Now, I ain't going to read the whole thing, but it depicts the intelligence of the Indian and the different levels that they were at when the white man came to the eastern shores. And it says that each level was at a different level of barbarism. There was many phases of human life, ranging from savagery up to intelligent barbarism and degraded types throughout the Columbia Valley to the Iroquois of New York and the villages of the Indians of the Pueblos of the all the way out west. There was 7 distinct steps from absolute savagery to civilization. If you didn't know that, that's apparently what there is. And based upon accutive and inventive faculties of man. And they're talking about how people got together and what they did. It spurs civilization all the way from prehistoric times. So the state of savagery you're in. So right now, are we in savagery? Or we're supposed to be kind and intelligent people, and that's supposed to bring us up to this next level of life. But as it goes on, it talks about the savagery, and some tribes, they didn't grow crops, and they just hunted for their food. They warred with everybody around them like wild animals. It says such were the Iroquois and the New England and Virginia Indians, the Creeks, the Cherokees, and the Choctaws and Shawnees, Miamis, Mandans, and other tribes of the United States east of the Missouri River, together with certain tribes of Mexico and some the same condition of advancement. They rated these people on advancement. Many of them lived in villages, some in which were stockaded, but villages' life was not distinctive and common among them, as it was amongst the most advanced tribes. So even though you could build a pueblo and have a village, they rate you by the crops you grow, how you treat your neighbors, and things like that. And it talks about even though you may be the most advanced Indians and you may be growing crops and doing everything, and your savagery is down, you're not at the top of the food chain. So and it goes on about the proper those exclusively upon people who lived upon horticulture and subsistence, cultivating maize and planting with irrigation. The Pueblos out in New Mexico, they constructed joint tenement houses and adobe bricks of stone, usually more than 1 story high. Such were the tribes of New Mexico, Central America, and these tribes were in the middle period of barbarism. And then it talks about their theory of government and held in all American tribes. In whatever period of savagery or barbarism they were grouped, was a plain and simple one. And I don't disagree. You got a simple culture living day to day. You don't need any complex systems. Look at our complex system. You need lawyers every time you do something, and to interpret the laws, because there's so many. You could break 3 laws a day and not even know it. I mean, the problem there is the laws are crazy. So we're living in such a complex system. We have to have people telling us what the laws are and enforcing those laws, because we have no idea what the law is. Okay. So anyway, as it goes on, there was chiefs, and they got together and they formed collectives, and then eventually they collected in treaties. And as we know, we had the Iroquois, and their league was the prominence of the Iroquois League was a result of their loyalty and decisions in council and wisdom that made them an exceptional race, and was quite as much the secret of their success over their neighbors and their enemies. The chief of the tribe was merely an exponent of public opinion, and all the affairs of the tribe, or the related lodges of the tribe, were regulated by the heads of households. The kinsmen of the chief were usually his most reliable adherents, and influence of the totem was apparent by divisions, the tenements of every village or tribe. Okay. Due to respect, however, was always paid to the office of chief. They never interrupted him when he was speaking, uh, nor did they use harsh language. Whenever the chief assumes most authority in the field, but this must be done even there with the great caution, as the head of the warriors thinks himself of most consequence in that place. Um, the Indians tended to communities, single or scattered lodges, and it maybe occasionally have been hermit or Indian was rare. So to be a hermit Indian and live out in the woods by yourself, very rare. Even more than a civilized state, the members of the Indian community needed each other. Their very usages were proof of this: war and the chase, the pursuit of power, of food. Remember, food. Remember, if anything ever happens, food is going to be one of our biggest things we'll need to do. Equally, so the thing is by yourself, it's really hard to survive. You need helpers. You need to band into community. Even the Indians knew that, and that's what they did. They lived in large houses, which we talked about many a times, the long houses. They all lived in pretty much harmony. If something affected one, it affected everybody. Okay, let's see. If you went to the Dakotas, they had, and this was pretty much in any place, but he talks about going to the Dakotas, and you would go to the Dakotas, and they would be muttering words of "come and eat." They would rise, and they would their hospitality, which was sacredly an hour of rest between sun and sun, and they would feed you and give you things and entertain you until you were totally full. You had to be polite about the whole thing, but they would feed you before they would feed anybody else or themselves. They were starving. They would give you their last morsel of food. It says here, so these guys came, they met up with the Indians. The Indians were so hospitable because they came in peace to their village. They were the kindest hosts, but if they had met us alone and unarmed on the prairie, they would have robbed of us our horses and perhaps bestowed an arrow upon us besides. And the communistic phase of the Indian faith leads naturally to another marked and positive characteristics in the Native American, his boundless hospitality. So this guy is saying because they lived in a group, depending on each other with simple rules, they had great hospitality and didn't prefer one over the other, that made them communist, a communist way of life, or the characteristics of it. It sprung from his community of interest, repeatedly alluded to an appearance of. The universal practice at the time of discovery was this, and obtained so gracious a welcome for earlier discoveries, even one of whom, from Columbus to Hudson and John Smith, reports of offerings of food pressed upon them by the natives. So anyway, so that's what he's going on about. He's going on about the belief the Indians held in relation to the freedom of the land and its products operated as has been shown in the particular manner in their reception. Okay, so indeed, the communistic principle does not only explain much of the existence, similarly in manner of living upon the native races of North America at the epoch of discovery, but it helps to explain numerous phases of Indian life. during their gradual conquest that they have hereto been almost problematical, because they didn't believe in things. They didn't believe that one man could own the land that was owned by all equally. The Indian philosophy was adjudged supernatural. The wondrous, strange case of steel or bright was gorgeous clothing, and with their tubes that sent out thunder and lightning, their great canoes with wings, their prancing steeds, and their commanding and assertive manner made each one of them to the myth-filled mind the savage, or the Manitou, something more than mortals and brothers. So they're talking about the gods. The gods gave them the land, but it was for everybody. And they lived in communities. And this guy is saying, because of that, they're communists, which I very much disagree with. But, David, I want your interpretation of this, if you got a second. Maybe you can't hear me. Anyway, that's kind of what was going on here. I think that these the theory is that they were in barbarism, and because they weren't civilized like the white man, and had houses and communities and paid taxes and all of that, and had capital, and gained great wealth or superiority over the rest of them. I think this guy believes that by sharing with everybody equally and never having more than the other, that's more communist. And I guess I could see that, but that's I would say that would almost go into a third category. Well, anyway, enough said of that. I hope you all can hear me. We've been having a little internet problems, so if you can and everything's going good, give me a thumbs up here or let me know that you can hear me, please. There we go. Susie Q's in the house. Desert Rose is in the house. Michelle Can-Am Free is in the house, along with Elderberry. And Elderberry is here somewhere. Yeah. Oh, there he is. And Mossy Man came in earlier. Right knowledge with inner peace to all. So thank you all for being here tonight. Great to see you all, and have you hear my spiel. But anyway, I am gonna put this up here because I have a presentation tonight. Since David's busy, I will just go on with my presentation, and we're going to be talking about the Wabash, the biggest battle disaster of the Indian Wars. Now, if you ever haven't heard of this, unless you live in the region of Ohio, the Ohio Valley, which was a big battleground for the Indians. And the battleground was pretty bad. This was the biggest battle, the biggest loss, I should say, of the Americans to the Indians ever. When the Americans read about Indian wars, places like Sitting Bull and Custer, Battle of Little Bighorn, in 1876, they forget about 100 years earlier. And you got to remember, this was a deadly war, hand-to-hand combat war, because they didn't have the guns and the military might that they did in 1876. Okay, the Battle of Wabash is also known as St. Clair's defeat. And there is St. Clair himself right there. It was named after the expedition's leader, Major General Arthur St. Clair, which occurred on the 4th of November. You know, there was quite a few battles fought on the 4th of November. But in 1791, and was one of the first tests of the fledgling U.S. Army of the early Republic. Now, first off, I'm going to tell you why were the Indians so mad. And from my reading, was the Indians were mad is because the United States, British people, or, you know, the British were making treaties, they were selling lands, and the Indians were not included. It's like, hey, I'll buy that chunk of land from you, but, you know, you got some squatters on there. Well, don't worry about them guys. Well, we're going to settle that land. Don't worry about them. You can kick them off. Our people want to build a house over here or over there or do this or that. Well, there's people living there. What are you going to do? Well, sorry, buddy. When you bought the place, you got to evict the strangers. And that's pretty much how it went. One day, they're living peacefully in their long houses and their teepees. And the next day, well, somebody bought your land. And now they come in and tell you what to do. Get out. Move. We don't want you here. This is a good place. We want to settle here. And, of course, that just pissed them off. It was just 2 years after the ratification of the Constitution, the United States faced the challenges by the tribes of the old Northwest Territory. Remember, this was, you know, the people were moving west. The 13 colonies were settled. People were moving into the areas of the Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, and parts of Minnesota. And I know some of you out there are listening from one of those states. And the British, who had lost, they teamed up with the Indians. And to get back at the Americans, they funded the Indians' rising by giving them guns and ammunition, food and swords and all kinds of metal trinkets and objects, and they could use for arrowheads and so forth. Prior to the Battle of Wabash, President George Washington had dispatched another expedition led by Brigadier General Joshua Harm to quell the Miami raids. That was one of the Indian groups, which were led by Chief Little Turtle. And he faced the supply shortage, poor military planning. Harmar was soundly defeated by the Miamis and forced to withdraw. Following the failure of Harman's expedition, another force was organized to march into the Northwest Territory and deal with the Miamis and Little Turtle. This expedition was led by, of course, our general here, Arthur St. Clair. He was a governor of the Northwest Territory and the Continental Army veteran. So he had a lot of experience under his belt. The force included 1st American Regiment, a 2nd Regiment of an infantry of 800 men that were 6-month volunteers organized into regiments of levies, Kentucky militia, and a few cavalry, which were brought in strength beyond 1,400 men. Now that's how you do it. St. Clair was plagued by illness, and some believe unfit to command the expedition. He set out with his force from Fort Washington, which is near present-day Cincinnati, in September of 1791. Now, that's a long time before the 4th of November, people. He's got a whole month of marching. A series of forts he built along the route. So these guys were working their asses off trying to build forts along the way. By November, St. Clair's force was only 90 miles where it started. The force was composed primarily of volunteers. Experienced desertion. Oh, he experienced desertions since the onset of the campaign. They faced frigid temperatures. Well, of course, it's October, November, of course. Being fall and constant supply trouble, the men were weakened and demoralized by that time. Of course they were. They were on the banks of the Wabash River. And St. Clair, he was weakened with his army, his people, and he had no supplies coming in. On the 4th of November, Little Turtle, the leader of the Miamis, led his warriors against St. Clair force across the river. Rivers are a great place to ambush to get someone. The military fled, running through the main camp. The Indians charged the main line, which held the musketry and bayonets. Oh, yeah. Once you break that, you're done for. St. Clair led his regulars in a bayonet charge and had 2 horses shot from out underneath him. He received several bullet holes in his clothing and had a lock of his hair shot away. Wow, he was lucky. The artillery was able to fire its cannons, but it had little effect due to the guns being aimed too high, supposedly, probably from inexperience, I would say. As a result, the cannons were ineffective. General Richard Butler, who was in command of the levy armaments, was shot twice and died in his tent. He was the first of 4 generals killed in the Indian Wars. The battle raged for hours. Women who accompanied the army fought desperately alongside the men and were also among the slaughtered. St. Clair ordered the camp abandoned, leaving behind the badly wounded and supplies. This is how bad it got so bad that he left his wounded and his supplies behind. That's terrible. And
you really got to be in a bad position to haul butt like that.
Yep. Forget the wounded. Let's get our asses out of here. Can you imagine
what
that?
about the food? Forget it. Run.
Yes. It gets worse, though. So that he organized this charge. He was surrounded, basically. You know, people were getting killed left and right. His generals are being killed. He was surrounded. People dying, getting injured. He says, we're going to just gather what we can, everybody. Leave the wounded behind, and let's run and charge out of here. They can't kill us all. So that's what he did. And he left behind the wounded and supplies. He led the breakout charge. Those who survived headed for Fort Jefferson. The rest were scalped, tortured, and murdered, including the women and children. Of the 1,400 regulars and the military, 918 were killed and 276 wounded. Almost half of the entire U.S. Army was either dead or wounded in the aftermath of St. Clair's defeat. So, when these guys were running, this is not part of this story. I read more stuff today. But as they're running, even the military guys, the Indians were after them so much. They were once they're, they had flintlock guns. So once your gun shot, you had to take time to load it, and they couldn't run fast enough. So they were throwing their guns away, throwing any article of their clothing away, because they're wearing those jackets and military gear. So they threw it all away and just to run, you know what I mean? And left everything they could behind and ran to the next fort. I thought that was unbelievable. Okay, St. Clair sent news of the defeat to the Secretary of War, Henry Knox, President Washington, who demanded St. Clair's resignation. Yeah, he lost 2/3 of the whole army of the United States. What would you do, right? You lost all the generals, Anyway, the state of shock ordered an investigation into the defeat. In early 1792, Congress authorized an increase in the size of the army and accreditation with the League of the United States. Major General Mad Anthony Wayne was selected to command this new force and was named Commander-in-Chief of the Army on August 20th, 1794, and was able to achieve what St. Clair could not and defeated the Indians in a battle of fallen timbers. The new Legion of the United States also brought the first displays of excellence and professionalism that were to be the foundations of the regular army. The House committee charged with doing the investigation eventually found that St. Clair's defeat was due to inadequate forces, gross mismanagement of quartermaster and contractors, and the lack of discipline and experience in troops. Just what I said. St. Clair received no blame for the disaster and was permitted to continue as governor of the Northwest Territory until 1802, which, see, it sounds a little bureaucratic even way back then. You did a bad job. You got half the army killed off, but we ain't gonna fine you, blame you. You can just go right back to where you started, right? You can find this in Wikipedia. The Native Americans were led by Little Turtle of the Miamis, Blue Jacket, we've heard Blue Jacket before, of the Shawnees, and Balongis and of the Delawares. And the war party number over 1,000 warriors, including many Potawatomis from eastern Michigan. The opposing force of about 1,000 Americans was led by General Arthur Sinclair. The force of the American Indian Confederacy attacked at dawn, taking Sinclair and his men by surprise. Of the 1,000 officers and men that Sinclair led into battle, only 24 escaped unharmed. As a result, President George Washington forced Sinclair to resign his post. Well, yeah.
Well, and to Sinclair's defense, he was in Indian territory.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They knew, he was, they might have understood the territory, but the Indians knew the territory.
Yes. We're going to look a little bit of the background, just like I said, they made a Treaty of Paris, which ended the American Revolutionary War. Is
the Wabash in Kentucky?
Ohio.
Okay, so they had crossed over the Ohio River.
Yeah. They were on the Wabash River, but they were in the Ohio Valley there somewhere.
The Wabash is in Ohio.
Yeah, I have. Hang on. Of course, you know me. I have a map. Can't not have a map.
Yeah, I apologize for my disappearing, but I had someone come and check on me.
Oh,
and okay. I had to go outside for a few minutes. So, but anyway.
I don't know why this ain't loading.
It's slow out there tonight, let me tell you.
Maybe. There you go. The Ohio miles from Fort Recovery to the Indiana state line. There's the Wabash River, and here's Fort Recovery. So they're just, on the west side of Ohio.
Yeah, so it goes through Indiana. Oh, I wonder why I thought it was Kentucky. Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, so anyway, there's Fort Recovery, built in 1793 after the battle was all over, because they were trying, of course, remember, the highways of yesteryear the rivers are the highways of yesteryear. And that, how should you say it? That's how they colonize. You notice all the forts are along the river.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to get rid of that one. Well, anyway, like I said, there was a treaty, and then of course, this plan necessary called for the removal of both Native American villages and squatters. So basically, you're living there your whole entire life, and then all of a sudden, somebody buys your land, and now you become a squatter, and they tell you to move. Of course, the white Indian relations continued resistance of native nations, and they threatened to deter American settlement. Well, and as you know, before this happened, there was the beaver wars where, everybody's hunting beaver. Beaver prices are high. The Indians killed all their animals off. They fought over, territory because of that. And then all of a sudden somebody buys their land up and says, get off. We want farmland now.
All right. The reason I brought up where is the Wabash is because I'm surprised at how far west in 1797 the white settlers had moved to establish that many forts along the Wabash.
Well, you gotta. I read in there, if you missed it, that from September to November, they were building forts along. He only went 90 miles from the first fort, and along the way, he built 3 forts. So that's what he was doing. He had 1,400 men building forts.
Right. But I mean the fact that they were that far west in 1797, I would have figured that they would have been more easterly, so they were, pioneers were really moving west a lot sooner than I was sort of expecting, I guess.
Well, yeah, but when was the Louisiana Purchase? That was like just right after that, like 1807 or something like that, because Thomas Jefferson sent out Lewis and Clark to inspect the land that they're buying, or 1812 or something, whatever it was. It was in that time.
I think it was 1807. That sounds better, because they had already completed the Lewis and Clark expedition before the War of 1812.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like I said, so here's one of the Indians. This is Little Turtle, Blue Jacket, and like I said, they became squatters immediately. Just as if, I would have been pissed too. We kind of reviewed some of this. The first expedition, a low number of poor quality expedition thus failed, set out until October 17. Building supply posts in advance. The Army's objective was Kinaloga, the capital of the Miami tribe. So they were heading right for where, they lived. The Army under St. Clair included 600 regulars and 800 6-month conscripts. Yeah, so we did that. I mean, for the Indians to figure all this out. Oh, here's some pictures of where they got trapped. St. Clair's defeat at Butler's battalion. You could see where they could kind of get entrapped here. You can go to the river, and if you got the river blocked off, you got to escape somewhere else. And they got surrounded big time. They had 1,400 warriors that completely encircled the U.S. camp. The U.S. muskets and artillery were poor quality and had little effect on the native warriors behind their cover. Meanwhile, St. Clair's artillery was stationed on the nearby bluff and was wheeling into position when the gun crews were killed by native marksmen and the survivors were forced to spike their guns. Women and children who accompanied the army sought refuge among the supply wagons. Remember, he left the supply wagons. Some militant tried to join them, but were forced back into the battle by the women. Drake ordered his battalion to fix bayonets and charge the central native position. Little Turtle's forces gave way and retreated into the woods, only to encircle Drake's battalion and destroy it. The bayonet charge was tried numerous times with similar results, and the U.S. forces eventually collapsed in disorder. St. Clair and his 3 horses shot out from under him as he fled, or he tried to unsuccessfully rally his men. Yes, they had them beat big time. After 3 hours of fighting, St. Clair called together the remaining officers and faced the total with the total annihilation, decided to attempt one last bayonet charge to get through the native line and escape. Supplies and wounded were left in camp as before. Little Turtle's army allowed the bayonets to pass through, but this time the men ran for Fort Jefferson. Ebenezer Denny wrote that the fastest ran, leaving the slow and wounded behind. A Pennsylvania detachment under Major John Clark provided the regiment for regard for the retreat. When Clark was wounded, however, the detachment fled. Yeah, that's right. Kill your captain, you're out of there. With no organized defense against the pursuing Native Americans, the retreat quickly turned out into a rout. It was, in fact, a flight. St. Clair described a few days later in a letter to Secretary of War Knox. He wrote that the route was littered with discarded flintlocks, cartridge boxes, and uniforms, as the fleeing army discarded any item that slowed them down. I told you, they just threw their stuff. In desperation, one cook known as Red-Headed Nance even abandoned her baby. Another account tells a similar story where a baby abandoned in the snow by a fleeing mother was found and adopted by pursuing Native Americans. Oh man, that makes it even worse. So it was snowing. So it's got snow on the ground and you're out there in the cold and you're being attacked. That puts a big spin on it too, doesn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
The head of the retreat.
So I'd like, for
okay.
Washington and them.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, anyway, Private Stephen, this is kind of interesting too. Private Stephen Little became lost in the woods and accidentally returned to the abandoned camp. He reported that the Native Americans were all gone in pursuit of the fleeing army. The remaining wounded begged him to kill them before the Native Americans returned. The American Indians continued their pursuit, killing those who fell to the rear of the retreat. After they had gone about 4 miles, they returned to loot the camp. Hiding beneath a tree, Littleton reported that they ate the abandoned food, divided the spoils, and killed the wounded. The head of the retreat reached Fort Jefferson that evening, a distance of nearly 30 miles in one day. I tell you, with Indians on your tail, you're going to run as fast as you can, even in the snow. Wow, 30. Could you run 30 miles in a day? Holy crap, Ola. Okay, with inadequate space and no food, it was decided that those who must continue to Fort Hammond, another 45 miles away. The wounded were left at Fort Jefferson with little to no food. Those on horseback reached Fort Hammond the next morning, followed by those who marched on foot. So can you imagine? You make it to the fort. You're on foot. They say, there's no room at the inn, boys. You got to keep going. And the next fort is 45 miles away. What do? Oh, boy. St. Clair sent the supply convoy and 100 soldiers under Major David Ziegler from Fort Washington on November 11th. They arrived at Fort Jefferson and found 116 survivors eating horse flesh and green hides. Oh, wow. Talk about desperate. Charles Scott organized a relief party of Kentucky militia, but was disbanded at Fort Washington in late November with no action taken. Lieutenant Colonel James Wilkinson assumed command of the 2nd Regiment in January 1792 and led a supply convoy to Fort Jefferson. The detachment attempted to bury the dead and collect the missing cannons, but the task was beyond it, with upwards of 600 bodies at the battle site and at least 78 bodies along the road. The exact number of wounded is not known, but it has been reported that that execution fires burned for several days after the battle. Oh, wow. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to skip a bunch of this. But this is descriptions of what it looked like. People like pictures better anyway. Pictures. You imagine that? Just they got trees to protect you, Indians everywhere, people dying, raiding your village, taking your spoils, scalping you, they scalp you, burn your wagons,
And
shooting you along the
Indians were
way.
better. This time,
yeah.
the Indians were better equipped than our own militia.
Yes. Yes, they were. And they'd planned it out. They surrounded us. They were fed. They were, they were in good shape. They, literally like it said, every time they made a charge, they let them pass, and then they surrounded that little charge, and then they did, defeated the little group at a time. And, and the horses, they didn't have a horse for everybody. A lot of those guys were on foot. And here's St. Clair's defeat. This is the fort and that was built after the defeat on the same spot. Here's what the Indians would, the depiction of what it would look like. You imagine? Well, of course, remember, if they're shooting guns like that, it would have been smoke everywhere because they didn't have smokeless gunpowder. Here's a depiction.
Yeah, and muskets and cannon, of course, they couldn't get the cannons to work right. But, those muskets, if there were 600 folks with rifles shooting at the same time, that's a lot of smoke. It'd been difficult to see.
You can kind of see it in this picture. See how they put smoke in the background?
Yep.
If you can see that. And I mean, they cleared this spot up, but in the background, it's all smoky. I mean, look at this guy here shooting, a big giant cloud of smoke coming out of his gun.
Yep.
Yeah.
And those flintlocks did that.
Yes. Yes, they did.
Because the gunpowder they had back in those days had a lot of impurities in it.
Yes. Yes, it did. Here's a picture of what the battle might have looked like. St. Clair's defeat. When the American pioneers attempted to settle the Northwest Territory following the Ordinance of 1787, or the Indians aided by the British. See, this is where things kind of went, south. The British were helping the Indians because they lost the war in 1776, They fought fiercely for their homes. The first United States Army sent to break the Indians' resistance was commanded by General Joshua Harm. It met defeat in 1790 at the Miami Indian Villages, present Fort Wayne, Indiana. General Arthur in St. Clair, the territorial governor, made the second attempt with the badly trained army. He marched north from Fort Washington in Cincinnati and reached this place on the evening of November 3rd, 1791. The following morning, the army found itself surrounded by the Indians' force and commanded by Chief Little Turtle. After a furious battle, St. Clair's troops broke through the enemy's encirclement and retreated southward. Here on this field, they left approximately 900 dead and wounded in what is relatively the most disastrous defeat ever to befall the American Army. Victory was yet to be won. Wow. More pictures of what the battle would have looked like.
So one would say that the Americans were unprovoked. I mean, they didn't go provoke the Indians,
Yeah. They
but
didn't
they were
provoke
an
them,
Indian.
but they did. They
Yeah,
did, but they
because they
didn't.
were there, they provoked them.
Yes.
And because they were building forts.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they were moving in on their territory, and they were like, "Hey, you're a vagrant now. You're a squatter. You're on the United States land." And see
Right.
now, I don't understand. Like, okay, see now, if we had good communication, there would have been, um, like nowadays, if there was communication and 2/3 of the American army was defeated and killed off, that would allow other countries. I'm surprised the British didn't start marching on Washington at that point, because there would have been nobody to defend. You know what I'm saying? Everybody, well, where's your army? Well, they were all wiped out by the Indians. You see what I'm saying? I'm surprised that
Yeah,
didn't
well, in a
happen.
way, that's where the Indians got their guns and powder. And
They
that's why
did.
they were able to defeat the Americans because they were so well armed by the British.
They did. Yes. Yes, exactly. And here's a
So, in a way,
letter
the
that,
British, in a way, the British won that one.
yes, without fighting. They just supplied.
Right. So, why should they invade Washington when they just took out half the army out there in Indiana?
Exactly.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yep. Exactly. St. Clair's
Plus,
defeat.
they might have
Yeah.
given all their guns away to the Indians and couldn't invade. They didn't have anything to shoot with.
Yep.
Well,
Here's
George,
blue.
we could go in there and throw some rocks, but I just don't think I'd do no good.
Yeah. Blue Jacket left allied with the British in the Revolutionary War. When the British lost, the Shawnee lost vast lands in what is today Ohio and a strong ally against the American settlers. In November 1791, Blue Jacket combined a confederation of Indian tribes with Miami chief Little Turtle and defeated a massive expedition led by Northwest Territory Governor Arthur Sinclair. His defeat, or the Battle of the Wabash, remains the single greatest victory by the Native Americans over the U.S. And if they could have only held that victory, things might have been different. Here's our picture, but you see, they were putting up forts every little while here, all the way down.
Yeah, in that last statement, things wouldn't have been any different. They
No.
just would have killed more Indians sooner.
Yeah. Well, and
But
the
I mean,
thing
as
was,
far as
is,
the outcome, the long term outcome, nah.
oh, yeah. Um, well, and that's the thing too, is, you know, the Indians couldn't resupply themselves. And when they lost the backing of the British, they were kind of left on a hook. They were defeating the Americans, and that was great, but they were losing too many people, and people were coming here from other countries fast. So, boat after boat after boat were bringing immigrants. It's kind of like right now where they're walking across the border, but only they were coming in boat after boat after boat with, full-size adults right off the boat. Whereas the Indians had to grow up their own, the kids one by one by one, and battle through diseases and hard times and no food and, battles and fighting other Indians, and it was great, Anyway, let's see. Anyway, I'm gonna put a thing, and if you guys haven't seen my Saturday show about helping Hawaii out there, I hope you could get over there. And Courtney is doing a fundraiser for the Hawaiian people on Maui. If you want, here's a link in the chat that you can donate. She told me that it was really nice to be on, and she's trying to raise a little bit of money. And even if a person could throw $5 towards this, that would be mighty appreciated. So there you go. There's a link in the chat. So there you go. Anyway, thank you all. So with the colonizing, I mean, you know, this battle, after I read about that, it really was hard to wrap my head around because of the fact that they, you know, you're an Indian, you're living on your land, and somebody sold it. That would make me mad too. You know, it'd be like you're living in your house, and one day somebody shows up at your door, or a group of people, and says, "Hey, we bought your house. Get out."
But
What would you do?
And the thing is that they didn't really understand the selling of land. They were into bartering and trading, but the selling of land was like, no, the Mother Earth belongs to everybody. No, wait a minute. So this concept of that you bought my land is like, what? No, Creator gave it to us. You can't buy that. No. So that was against their religion too. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, you missed the first part when you were off a bit there. That's what I was talking about, the communism thing. And that's what this guy was talking about is you know, the Creator God, their gods, the Spirit, the Great Spirit gave them the land, and nobody really owned the land. It was for everybody. You could have your territory, but the land was for everybody, and everybody in the village was pretty much equal. You know, it was one one for all and all for one kind of thing. You know, if one person was affected, they were all affected. They lived in the same house. They were brothers and sisters and cousins. And if you were attacked, you got together and you fought back. Or if you know what I'm saying? The land wasn't yours or theirs or the other guys. Yeah. It was everybody's, given by the Great Spirit to do with what you could and what you want. Two white guys arguing culture. Why is there two white guys arguing Indian culture? That's because David Null is Hawkeye Two Feathers. You got Indian blood in you. I have none. There you go. Anyway, we are discussing.
Bad connection.
That's right. Oh, you missed that? Bosnian refugee says, why is there two guys arguing Indian culture? And I'm saying because David Null is you got part Indian in you. Some anyway.
Yep.
I got none. I'm discussing
Cherokee.
And you got Cherokee. I got zero in me. But I do like the idea about talking about this, because in the sense of I am an outsider. I am not going to argue because I am not Indian blood. I have no bucket in the fight, you know. But the thing is I'm learning about my culture by studying their culture. And I'm realizing that, you know, I think there was a lot of things done wrong. We could have been better. You know, who is the bad guy here? You know, that's what I'm trying to say. And the next part is, did we learn from our mistakes?
Absolutely. We were the conquerors.
Yes, we are. So the question is did we learn anything?
The discussing or arguing, I am discussing, but I'm not arguing in any way. Robert and I agree 99.9%. But what we are doing is trying to present real history, these are the things that happened in America. And they're they're swept under the rug, covered up. They're not discussed because no, we're America. No, we took this land from the Indians. Well, you're damn right. And whether or not it was correct or not is what we're discussing. Should we have come in and conquered the Indians? Should we have come in and honored the treaties that we made? Because every dadgum president or congressman that came around broke the treaty one way or another. And then, then the Indian, is like, white man, he speak with forked tongue because
Yeah.
he would never honor his word. And it was like, well, this guy came out and spoke to the chief. And then, but the chief was always there, but whoever came out to the chief was always different. So here's some guy with a treaty. Next guy came out. Who's this guy? Well, I got another treaty. I'm from the Great White Father. Well, the Great White Father kept changing. It wasn't the same guy. So, to the Native Americans, they did not understand the system at all. And I think some Americans didn't quite understand the system. Do we understand the system now?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think we're seeing that in Hawaii in a way, because and that is a link that I just put in there for the Hawaii thing through Stars of the Morning Light for Courtney. She's trying to do a good thing, and just like they did, for the Indians, they drove them off the land. They burned their houses, and well, now that your house is burnt down and all your possessions, get out. We're taking over. It doesn't matter what you did here for 1,000 years.
We're going to buy it.
Yeah, we've already purchased the land, and too bad you were on it, because all of us that live here in the United States, really, we technically don't even own our land, do we?
No, we don't. We rent it. No, because, the state of Georgia, because of eminent domain, can come in and take up any land they want to simply by claiming eminent domain. Well, and so can the federal government. That's a little harder, but, within the state, even within the county, if they say, hey, look, we're going to put a road through here, what? You got a little say so. But eminent domain, wait a minute. There's a lot of people who have lost a lot of property because of eminent domain. We're going to put a railroad through here. What? We're going to cut your farm in half. What? How am I going to get my cattle to graze? Tough toots.
Yeah, exactly. And that is exactly it. They don't care. They're in it. The government is looking at how best suits them, not about us. And if you don't pay your taxes, they just take it away, and they'll sell it to somebody else. They'll sell it, collect that money to somebody else who will pay those taxes. And that's what it's all about. The Indians were living here, and they were paying taxes. And they were just vagabonds running around, they were squatters. We read the thing. It said squatters. As soon as we bought the place, hey, you saw British or whoever was there they bought it from says, hey, we're not going to get them out, but you got a lot of squatters. You're going to have to get them out yourself. So send in the troops. That's literally what it was. They were informed, hey, we bought this land, you got to move.
Yep.
I've been living here for 10,000 generations. Doesn't matter. You're out. Anyway.
Well, that's why it was so important for, years when they moved everybody to Oklahoma.
Yeah. Yeah, you get them off that land that they lived on all these generations, and you move them somewhere else. And now, well, you can't
it was
say
important because there were stragglers.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I did. There's just not anybody talking about anything, and there's a lot of head scratching, and it's gonna be hard for them to cover this up. For too much longer, because there are children missing, there are busloads of people, there are just, where did they go? I don't know. So they can put this off and put this off, but they still haven't answered the question.
Well, and that's the thing.
But I can.
You can.
I akin what happened in Maui to Building 7 on 9/11.
Yeah.
Because we don't know how the building came down.
No,
we don't know.
It just did.
And same thing with them folks. Well, we don't know. We don't know what happened to them. They just, the fire, we don't know. And that's good. We don't know.
All I can say is
that's going to be the answer.
The Building 7 and this, all I can say is this was planned out long before it actually happened. And then when it happened, the plan was executed perfectly. And we will never know because they won't let us know. I mean, we could put all the pieces we want together and say, well, there's all these missing children. There's the buses that are missing. There's the houses that didn't burn and the houses that did and the cars that burnt and the trash cans that didn't burn. This is really funny, but you know what? We're in the not knowing people. They're never going to give up that information. They had this planned out. It's just like 9/11. Years later, people are still, it's a conspiracy theory. You know what I'm saying?
It's not a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy when Building 7 came down.
Oh, I know, but I mean,
explained why.
But I'm saying is,
but I mean, so that takes it. It's not a conspiracy, and so, but the interesting. Sorry, let me let the dog out.
All right. Oh, I was just saying is that, it's a conspiracy to question that. And by questioning what actually happened, you become a conspiracy theorist. And, instead of taking the narrative as they gave it to you, just like Building 7, come down, you're not supposed to question it. You're just supposed to say, well, it happened. It must have been whatever they tell me it was, good or bad. Because if you question,
it fell, accepted.
Yeah, exactly. Don't question why it fell or how it fell. Yes.
It fell. Shut up.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And you're done. Yeah.
I do want to point out, though, that from 911, they use similar types of devices on Maui.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. They use very similar devices.
Yeah. I believe this has been going on for a long time. It's just that certain ones like this, we see things, or it's so big that people question it. I mean, Trina was on the other day saying, it's amazing how, we had some land up in the mountains and there was a fire and all the cabins burnt. Gee, how weird is that? And then, like all these fires in Canada, they're all starting, there's fires up there like crazy. I know I'm getting smoked out. But nobody's up there to see who's starting the fires, or I just can't believe that many fires start all by themselves.
Right.
I mean, Really? There's that many lightning strikes? There's, really? But since nobody's around, you just say, well, it must have been nature. Nobody's out there. It just happened. It was two squirrels and a porcupine, and they got in a scuffle, and porcupine got his quill scratched on a rock, and it started a fire.
Yeah.
That's how it
He
happened.
rubbed up against a flint rock and it sparked.
That's exactly what happened. Now, don't question what I say. Just accept it as fact. What do I say as fact? That's it.
And also, Robert, the people who are up there, nobody believes them.
No,
they
because
say,
you're
well,
one.
listen, there are blue sparks coming from the sky. And no, that's just your imagination. But there were blue sparks coming from the sky.
Yeah, they don't believe one individual, So anyway, what do you got for us
tonight? They don't
tonight?
believe 100 individuals.
Neither, yeah. Well, exactly. You're just a minority. It'd have to be. I mean, look at back. Oh, I forget what year it was, 97 or something. There was that big UFO that went over Los Angeles or something. I forget what city that was. Hundreds of thousands of people seen it, and then they said, that was nothing. Yeah, Phoenix. The Phoenix Lights. That's what it was. Thousands and thousands. Yeah, never happened. Nope, no such thing. It was just military guys shooting off fireworks or something. Really? Okay. See, that's
it was a weather balloon from China.
That's right. That's right. What do we got for us tonight?
Oh, we got 2 stories.
Good deal. And there you go. That's the first one. Do I got the right one?
Or there's a lot of lag tonight.
Yeah, I was going to say, do I got the right one? It's got to be it.
Yep. Boy, it takes a while, Perta. I agree, Chloe. It wasn't Mother Nature. Mother Nature don't act that way. Just saying.
Yeah.
There's many of us around in my 71 years. I ain't never seen nothing like it. So,
yeah.
Are you set up and ready?
I am ready. I don't know if you can see it, but yes, I am.
All right, give me half a sec.
It's all set.
Let me wipe my glasses. Got to clean these puppies every once in a while. I got them smudged. It's difficult to read. We want to thank you all for being here tonight and hanging out with us. And if it sounds like Robert and I are arguing, we ain't.
We're good.
Discussing
we're good.
Always.
Yes. Friendly discussion. We're good thinkers. That's why we're so wise.
And we ask questions and pose questions because we want to understand it and become more wiser, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so the stories for tonight. Bald eagle sends mud turtle to the edge of the world. Doña Yanda is eagle, and Ganyaquad is mud turtle. Once upon a time, a bald-headed old man lived on the top of a mountain, and his wife and 3 children lived near a lake about halfway to the summit of the same mountain. Each day, the old man went down to fish in the lake. On his way home, he stopped and gave some of the fish to his wife, and thus they lived well and happily. After they had passed many years in this manner, the old man became curious to know how large the world is. Being chief of his people, he called a council and said, I want to know how large the world is. I wish some man would volunteer to find out. One young man said, I will go and find out. Very well, said the chief. How long will you be gone? I can't tell, for I don't know how far I shall have to travel. Go, said the chief, and when you return, you will tell us about your journey. The young man started, and after traveling 2 moons, he came to a country where everything was white. The forest, the water, the grass. It hurt his feet to walk on the white ground, so he turned back. When he reached home, he notified the chief. The chief said, I don't believe that he has been to the edge of the world, but I will call a council and we will hear what he has to say. When the people were assembled, the young man said, I did not go very far, but I went as far as I was able. And he told all he knew of the white country. The chief said, we must send another man. They sent a second man. He was gone 4 moons and returned. The chief called a council and then asked, did you go to the end of the world? No, said the man, but I went as far as I was able to go. Everything was as it is here till I came to the white country. I traveled 2 moons in the white country and could go no further. I could not have lived had I continued my journey. The chief sent a third man. He traveled farther than the second man, then came back and related that there were people who lived in white houses and dressed in fur. The chief was encouraged and he sent a fourth man. As the man traveled, he noticed everything. He crossed white rivers and white lakes and was gone 8 moons. On his return, he said, I came back quicker than I went, for I came a shorter way and reached the green land sooner than I would if I had come on the trail by which I had went. The chief sent a fifth man. He crossed the white country, and beyond that he found a place where there was nothing but rocks. He climbed very high, then went down, and so he went up and down till he wore his moccasins off. He was gone 10 moons and came back. At the council called by the chief, the man said, I passed over the white country, crossed rocky places, and then came straight home. It cannot be very far across the world. How did you know the way home? Asked the old man. As I went, I noticed the trees. The tops of the hemlocks lean toward the east, and our home is in that direction. So I followed the bend of the hemlocks. The bald-headed chief was learning something all the time. Many men were sent one after another, and each returned with a story a little different from that told by others. But still no one satisfied the chief. At last a man said, I will start, and I will go to the end of the world before I come back. The chief looked at the man and saw that he was very homely, but very strong, and he said, I think you will do what as you promise. You may go. The chief called a council of the whole nation, and each man agreed to make a journey by himself and then come home and describe all that he had seen. The chief and his men went and were gone 40 moons. When they came home, a council was held, and each told what he had seen. When the man came who had promised to go to the end of the world, he said, I have been to the end of the world. I have seen all kinds of people, all kinds of game, all kinds of forests and rivers. I have seen things which no one else has ever seen. The chief was satisfied. He said, I am chief of all the people. You will be next to me. You will be second chief. This was the pay the man got for his journey. He took his position as second chief. Old chief was Bald Eagle. The first man sent out was Deer. His feet were tender. He could not endure the ice and snow of the white country. The homely man who went to the end of the world was Mud Turtle. The end.
There we go. Good story. I like it.
Now, the next story.
What is the next? The boy who learned the songs of birds?
The songs of birds. And I read most of this story before we came on, and it's an interesting story. So, without further ado, two brothers lived by themselves and supposed they were the only persons in the world. The younger was a little fellow, but he did the thinking for both. Whatever he said, the elder brother did. One day he said, Brother, kill a turkey for me. I want 2 feathers. The young man killed a turkey and brought it home. When he gave it to the little boy, he asked, What are you going to do with the feathers? I want them for a headdress, answered the boy. And pulling 2 feathers from the turkey, he gave them to his brother and asked him to fix them in a socket in such a way that they would turn with the wind. When this was done, the little boy fastened the socket to a band and wore the feathers for a headdress. At night, he hung the headdress on the wall over his couch, but as soon as daylight came, he put it on his head. One morning, when going out, he said to his brother, I like my feathers, and I am going to have a dance for them. The young man watched till the boy disappeared behind a fallen tree. Soon he heard singing, and then he heard dancing. He was frightened and said to himself, Something is the matter with my brother. When the boy came back, the young man asked, What were you doing? Were you dancing behind that tree? Why did you go so far? Why didn't you dance right here with me, not go off alone? You don't know the songs I sing. I can learn them, then I can help you. Well, if you want to help me, you may dance. It isn't right for me to dance when I don't know how to sing, and I haven't feathers in my hair. Well, I will change places with you, said the little boy. You may hunt small game, and I will hunt deer. I have hunted birds, for them I learned songs. Your game does not sing. But maybe I could not kill big game. I am so small, and maybe you couldn't kill birds. You are so large. Well, said the elder brother, you may sing and dance all you want to. I will hunt. The young man continued to hunt large game. Often, when coming toward home, he heard his little brother singing and dancing. But as soon as the boy saw him, he began to do something else, as though he had not been singing or dancing. This frightened the young man and made him think that something was going to happen. Once he asked his brother, why have you stopped hunting for birds? I listen to their songs, said the boy. That is why I don't shoot them. One day, he said to his brother, my feathers are worn out. I want you to kill another turkey. The young man killed the largest turkey he could find and brought it home. Skin the turkey, said the boy, and make me a pouch. When the pouch was finished, the young man gave it to his brother and asked, do you like it? Yes, said the boy. It is just as I wanted it to be. While the skin was drying, the boy often put it around his body and went off into the woods. When he came back to the cabin, he took the skin off and hung it up. You must not go far from the cabin, said his brother. No, answered the boy, I will stay near home and take care of things. Once he said to his brother, you must stay at home and not go hunting today. I want you to learn to sing my songs. What I do now will be for the people who are to come. I will make a rule that people to come must wear feathers and dance and sing. The elder brother studied over this and wondered how a little boy could have such thoughts. Now, said the boy, I am going to sing a song. You must listen and learn it. He sang a song. What is the name of that song? Asked the elder brother. From singing the songs of the birds, the boy had grown very wise. He said, it is the song the people will sing when they wear feathers on their heads. A war song. You must be careful in singing it. If not, you will fall to the ground senseless. I sing what I have heard the birds sing. I give thanks as I have heard them do when I was hunting. I dance to my songs because I hear the birds sing and see them dance. We must do as they do. It will make us feel glad and happy. One day, when the brothers were out looking around, they saw a large bird sitting on a tree. When the bird began to sing, the young man knew that his brother had learned its song, for he had heard him sing it. You are very wise, he said to the boy. I think the Great Spirit tells the birds to teach us songs. And he began singing a song of his own, different from those his brother sang. Do you think I could dance to your song? Asked the little boy. I'll try if you will sing it again. Instead of singing, the elder brother said, I will tell you the words of my song. They are, I am glad to see the day. I am thankful for the sunbeams. I know the song, said the boy. It is different from mine. There isn't as much joy. When we are sad, we will sing your song and gain courage. Now you must hunt for your kind of game, and I will hunt for mine. As the young man was starting off, the boy jumped into his turkey skin and said, Brother, I will go with you. Oh no, said his brother, I go too far. You would get tired. The boy insisted, and at last the young man said, You may go part of the way, but all of the way would be too far. When they had gone a long distance, the young man said, This is far enough for you to go. You must go back now. The boy went home, hopping and running exactly like a turkey. The young man noticed that his brother was wearing his turkey skin all the time that he wore at nights. He didn't like this, and he asked him to take it off. You made it for me, said the boy. I like to wear it. The young man was fond of the boy, so he didn't say any more. Afterward, when he mentioned the turkey skin, he always received the same answer. You made it for me, and I like to wear it. The boy played like a turkey, and when he saw wild turkeys, he imitated the noise they made. He was learning the habits of a turkey. The young man worried over this. The boy no longer wore feathers on his head, and his voice began to change. It didn't sound like his voice. At last his brother told him to take the skin off. The boy said, I can't take it off. You will have to help me. The young man pulled but couldn't get the skin off. It had grown to the boy's body. Turkey said, I shall stay with you always, but you must be careful. Something is going to happen. He was very wise now. His advice was better than ever. It was beyond the comprehension of his brother. Once, when the young man came home, he couldn't find Turkey. But the next morning, he heard him on the roof of the cabin, making the noise that a turkey makes at daybreak. He felt strangely, felt that his brother had become a real turkey. Soon he heard him jump down. Then he came into the cabin and said, Brother, a woman is coming. I think she is coming for you. You must be careful. Something is going to happen to us. If you go with her, I shall follow you. When the woman came near the cabin, she saw a turkey standing in front of it. She looked at the bird but didn't say anything. Going into the cabin, she said to the young man, I have come for you. I will tell my brother and find out what he thinks about it, answered the young man. The woman didn't know the turkey she saw outside was the young man's brother. He went to Turkey and said, A woman has come. Didn't I tell you one was coming? She is full of witchcraft and she will try to destroy us. You must tell her that you are not ready to go, that you will start tomorrow. Something bad is going to happen to us. The young man said to the woman, I will go with you as soon as I can get ready. Turkey determined to stay in the house that night. He hopped in and perched on a roost his brother had made for him. The woman thought the boy was a tame turkey. The next morning, neither of the brothers could eat. The elder said, I must go with this woman. It is wrong to go, said Turkey. She has great power. It will be hard to outwit her. When the woman and the young man started, Turkey followed them till he saw them turn and go toward the west. Then he went back to the cabin. He was very lonely. The next morning he said to himself, Poor brother, that woman has taken him away from me. She is going to kill him. I must go and see what is happening to him. He traveled toward the west till he came to an opening in the woods. In the opening was a cabin. That must be the place, thought the boy. An old woman who was in the cabin said to her daughter, There is a turkey outside. It is tame. Maybe it has come to stay with us. Right away, the young man knew that his little brother had come. The woman took a fancy to the turkey. They didn't think of trying to kill it. Toward night, one of the women wanted to shut it up so it couldn't go away, but the boy ran out and perched on the roof so as to see and hear everything. The next morning, when the young man came out of the cabin, his brother followed him and asked, Brother, how can you stay here and be abused by the old woman and her daughter? They don't give you anything to eat. And her daughter, they don't give you any. They're going to kill you. I have come to tell you this and to tell you that I am going to save you. Turkey started toward the east. As his brother watched him, he said, I am glad he can go where he wants to go. Turkey was angry at the women. When he reached home, he thought, I must get out of this skin and get my own form. I've been turkey long enough, and he pulled and he worked till at last he freed himself. He hung the skin up and put the feather band around his head. Then he began to study over how he could free his brother. After a while, he said, This is what I will do. And going out, he called to his medicine, Moose. As soon as he called, Moose was there. The boy said to it, Go to the west to where the old woman and her daughter live. When my brother comes out of the cabin, seize him and throw him onto your back. Then run with all your strength. Take off your feathers, horns, and I will put mine onto your head. Yours are too heavy to run with. The moose horns and put his feathers band in their place, saying, When you come back, I will give you your feathers. Moose ran off in the direction of the old woman's cabin, and the boy said to himself, He will come back soon. He will come back. In a short time, he heard a noise and going outside saw his brother clinging to the moose's back. He was so weak that he couldn't get off alone. I told you that something bad would happen, said the boy. Now you have your punishment. To Moose he said, Stand here for a while. He helped his brother into the cabin, and when he came back, he changed feathers with Moose and sent him away. I am glad to have you back, said the boy to his brother. We are free now from the old woman and her daughter and can live together in peace. They lived together ever after and continued to learn the songs of birds. From birds came all the Indian songs and dances. The end.
Good one. He really did a trickola
How
with
about that
that.
for a story?
He did a trick on him with that moose, didn't he? I liked it. That was good.
And
That was good.
he quit shooting the birds when he started
Yep.
learning their songs and their dances. So,
Mhm.
you know, it was like his job to hunt birds. You can dance if you want to. You can leave the
Yeah.
world behind. Yep.
Yeah.
Ain't you no
Yeah.
friend of mine. Yep.
Oh yeah, I remember that
I see it,
song.
Chloe.
You
You can
dance if you
dance if you
want
want
to.
to.
Oh, who sang that?
Yep.
I don't know. That was a good one. Yeah. Back in the day. Back in the
I
day.
I can't remember, but you know, we often go to
Mm-hmm.
name that tune.
Oh yeah. I don't know who sang it. Oh well, it was good. Another wonderful
What
story.
time is it?
It is 11:15.
Okie doke. I'm shuffling cards. I had tried to get him out earlier, and I forgot Duggar's still outside. He can stay outside for a minute. I'll try not to pull more than one card.
Okay. Well, we're doing pretty good so far.
Uh,
When we
well,
start going over 2 hours.
sort of got two cards.
You know, isn't it amazing how when we started out, it was we tried to keep it under an hour, and that just didn't work out.
No,
Oh, now we try to keep it under the 2 hour, but it works out just fine. I want to appreciate everybody who came. Aaron's Energy, Michelle Can-Am Free, Chloe is in the house, Amber Dawn. Thank you for coming tonight. Let's see who else was here. I remember seeing Susie Q, and let's see, Bosnian refugee, and I don't know, probably Lucky Stone. And but anyway, Elderberry, Mossy Man. Thank you all for being here and being a part of the show tonight. What a great bunch of people that will come and enjoy a show with us. But you know, it's sometimes I even have to rewatch my own shows because darn gone, there's always something in there that I like to rehear. You know what I mean? It's kind of crazy.
yep. So heads up on Swan, number
Ooh,
39
Swan.
in the book. Swan is grace. Swan, the power of woman entering sacred space, touching future yet to come, bringing eternal grace. Little Swan flew through the dream time, looking for the future. She rested for a moment in the coolness of the pond, looking for a way to find the entry point to the future. This was a moment of confusion for Swan. As she knew that she had happened in the dream times landscape. As Swan looked high above Sacred Mountain, she saw the biggest swirling black hole she had ever seen. Dragonfly came flying by, and Swan stopped him to ask about the black hole. Dragonfly said, Swan, that is the doorway to the other places, the other planes of imagination. I have been guardian of the illusion for many, 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 many moons. If you want to enter there, you have to ask permission and earn the right. Swan was not so sure that she wanted to enter the black hole. She asked Dragonfly what was necessary for her to earn the right to entry. Dragonfly replied, "You must be willing to accept whatever the future holds as it is presented, without trying to change Great Spirit's plan." Swan looked at her ugly little duckling body and then answered, "I will be happy to abide by the Great Spirit's plan. I won't fight the currents of the black hole. I will surrender to the flow of the spiral and trust what I am shown." Dragonfly was very happy with Swan's answer and began to spin the magic to break the pond's illusion. Suddenly, Swan was engulfed by a whirlpool in the center of the pond. Swan reappeared many days later, but now she was graceful and white and long necked. Dragonfly was stunned. "Swan, what has happened to you?" he exclaimed. Swan smiled and said, "Dragonfly, I learned to surrender my body to the power of the Great Spirit and was taken to where the future lives. I saw many wonders high on Sacred Mountain, and because of my faith and my acceptance, I have changed. I have learned to accept the state of grace." Dragonfly was so very happy for Swan. Swan told Dragonfly many of the wonders beyond the illusion. Through her healing and her acceptance of the state of grace, she was given the right to enter the dream time. So it is that we learn to surrender to the grace of the rhythm of the universe and slip from our physical bodies into the dream time. Swan medicine teaches us to be at one with all planes of existence. Keep that in mind, y'all. To be one with all planes of consciousness and to trust in Great Spirit's protection. If you pulled Swan, it ushers in a time of altered states of awareness and of development of your intuitive abilities, that third eye. Swan medicine people have the ability to see the future, to surrender to the power of the Great Spirit, and to accept the healing and transformation of their lives. So there you go. Grace. Accept the grace. You have to give in to the Creator and believe, 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 and have faith. So there you go. Our message for tonight.
Good deal. Swan is grace. Live life with grace. I like it. I like it. I sure do. Oh, well, I tell you, we had a great show tonight. I hope everybody really enjoyed the messages, the stories, and the information. The thing is, listen to what we got to say, question it, go out and find some information on your own, because it's all about the investigation. It's all about the doing a little bit of work to find out what are your questions. You notice we get together and talk about things here and there, and it gets in my head, and then I question. I go and research more stuff. It's all about learning. What do you say to that?
Well, when I was in school, we all learned the history of the world, but we didn't really learn the history of the United States. Oh, we learned about how the pioneers moved westward, but we didn't hear about all of the, the slaughtering on both sides.
Oh
We
no.
didn't know about the Indian story, if you will. And
Hmm.
so, I think our quest, I know my quest is to present the history that has been forgotten out of, most textbooks, you know, and because we hear of the history of the Greeks and the Italians, and we hear about the Vikings, and we hear about all these other folk, but we don't hear really the history of the Native Americans and what they did and what how they lived until the white man got here. And then it was all about the pioneers moving westward and overtaking their land. So, but what kind of history is that? Well, I think we try to present both sides, but obviously, the native folk were conquered. That's just obvious, you know.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, hopefully, you we try to present both sides. If there is both sides, sometimes, there's only one side to a massacre. Um,
Yeah. Well, but
no matter which side it happens on.
the thing is when we come and look at all of this stuff, like you said, I'm learning this in school, I'm watching it on TV, whatever. It's always talking about, yeah, you get mom and pop and the little kids, and they're in their little wagon and they're heading out west, and they're going to put it, and they build a little cabin and they're having a little farm, and the Indians come along and they shoot them up and scalp dad and take the mom and the baby's prisoner or whatever, and yada yada yada. And then some hero comes to the rescue and kills all the Indians and rescues the little lady and the babies and stuff, right? But you never stop to ask, why were the Indians so pissed off? Well, you got mom and dad in the little covered wagon going out west. Why were they going there? For what reason? Where did they come from? What was the point behind it? They were just trying to have a little farm, but who told them to go there? And we don't look at the bigger picture. Why was all this going on? And that's what I think by questioning what we know, we're going to learn something.
And I'd like to add this 10 cents. I like to watch old westerns.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing that I would say 80% of the old westerns that I've watched, and I'm an old geezer and I've watched a bunch, but that they're more sympathetic to the Indian than not.
Mm.
I mean, even when the Indians swipe some girl or something and they go chasing after them, they still, throw in the the plight of the Native American. Well, the Apache this and the Cheyenne and the Chippewa, and and they always throw something in. It's not just the savages. In fact, in a couple
Mm-hmm.
of these movies, there have been, the white sheriff or the white colonel or something, and there's some, drunken, slobby guy, and he's like, the only good Indian's a dead Indian. And then some guy smacks him for making that remark. And, so um, it's amazing that we as a white race, us, I'm not white, I'm part Cherokee. But in that, though, that back in the days of the Westerns, and I mean, even the black and white ones, as well as the colored, motion pictures, um, as to how they stood up for the Native American.
Yeah.
What?
They
I think in trying to make up for
well, I
what
think
we did, that there are a lot of lot
I think they,
of, Roy Rogers, living as they.
I think, yeah, they were starting to become a little more politically correct in that manner instead of like some of these old books that I got where they just talk about how they're just barbarians and savages and, and things like that. Because most of these books, like in 1887, the last Indians were still roaming the plains. You know what I'm saying? And then, yeah,
And
you
I appreciate what they tried to do. I really
mhm.
do. It's like, what? He just stood up for an Indian. What? This is a Western about, people moving. What? He just stood up for the Indians. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. When it
So, but
really wasn't,
anyway,
it really wasn't like that very much. In the real
no.
West, I'm reading Kit Carson's autobiography. I'm almost done, and then I'm gonna have that on one of these days. But this guy, Kit Carson, who was, in all respects, some big hero. He was in, the 10-cent and dime novels and on all these things like that. He was, he was he was the superhero of the day. I mean, this guy was a mountain man, a tracker. He was in the leading people across the Rocky Mountains. But when I'm starting to read his papers, I am like devastated to find out that he was kind of wicked. I mean, I get what he was doing, but I also think, holy mackerel, he was a lot different than what I think he was. Put it that way.
Meaning,
What meaning he was violent. When it came to Indians,
oh,
he didn't, he didn't hold back. It was like, oh, you stole the horse, let's go kill the whole village. This guy, we're going to go in
whoa.
there and, some Indians came along and, well, we got to retaliate. Let's go kill them all. Oh, we got our animals back. We got all our horses. Well, we got to show them, they can't be doing that. So let's go in there and wipe them out. Like, what? you know, in one instant, there was a group of Indians. I was just reading this one last night, and he's got a wagon train. He's hauling supplies back to New Mexico, and from like St. Louis or something, right? And he's got 12 wagons full of supplies. He's got a group of about 15, 20 guys with him, and a band of Indians shows up, and they want to come into his camp and trade and talk and whatever. And he says, no, you're not coming into the camp. We don't have anything for you. And and they're like, oh, no, we want to come in and be nice. And he says, I think these Indians, it's right that I think these Indians are going to come into camp, and then they're going to kill us all. They just want to scout us out, and then they're going to see what we got, and then they're going to kill us. There's way more of them. There's a couple hundred of them, and not many of us. So I'm not letting them in. And they're standing outside, and he's like, nope, you can't come in. And they're not listening to him. So he just shoots one. That's it. He just shoots one. And then they all leave. And I'm like, I mean, really? No, guys, you got to get back. Bam! Well, are you sure you want to keep coming? I mean, I'm thinking, wow. Now, wouldn't they get pissed off? Didn't you they're people. You just shot one of them. Do you think they're not going to come and want to scalp you now? You just shot the guy's brother or his uncle or his aunt or what? You know what I mean?
Yep.
And he didn't think nothing of it. He just killed one. Big deal. Or he went into the camp, and after, he wasn't no better than the Indians. So, like, when he killed the Indians, he went and scalped them all. He's like, oh my gosh, there's a bounty on those. Scalp them Indians. Like, oh, man. He was tough, though. He was just a little guy, but he was tough. And I'm going to talk more about him in my report maybe next week or something. But wow, just shake your head. This guy.
He was a mean little SOB, huh?
Yes, he was. But I mean, it was kill or be killed, and he didn't want to be killed, so he's just going to kill. And no wonder why the Indians acted like they do, is because, their culture says you go out and you steal some horses and you count coup and you do all of these things. Well, then, when you do these things, well, what's the white man's way is, well, you got to get punished for these things. Not just, we're going to go steal our horses back. Now you have to get punished. And what ways of punishment are there back in the day? You don't hold them accountable by taking them to the law or the sheriff. You execute on sight. Thinking, wow, okay. So anyway, enough of that.
They tied you to a wagon wheel.
Well, that's what the Indians do. But I mean, I know why they were so cruel, is because we were just as cruel. We didn't even, just terrible. So anyhow.
So I want to thank you all for showing up tonight and hanging out with us. And so we can segue in. Robert's going to end the show, but, I say thank you and blessings to all of you who give us your energy and your time and, conversation in the chat room with amongst each other. So I continue to pray that y'all will continue to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the blessings from the universe. Over to you, Robert.
And with that, that's wonderful. I tell you, I love that. Remember, everybody, go out and do something nice. Remember, there's a donate to Courtney's little fund. And I'll throw that in the chat one more time. She's looking just for a little bit, $5 if you got it. And remember, everybody, it's giving from the heart, and do something nice for your neighbor. We may all be in a predicament someday, and not just those people in Maui or Lahaina or wherever it is. It might be you. It might be your next door neighbor. There might be a tornado or a fire or a flood or an earthquake, for heaven's sakes. And it might just be a bad snowstorm. You never know. You might be the guy stuck in a ditch somewhere, and somebody pulls up and says, "Can I pull you out?" And, pass it forward. Be the guy that pulls the other guy out or helps them or, just makes their day. Because you know what? The most important thing is being the frequency you want to receive, everyone. I love y'all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers.